20 of Sports Shorts, the CEO and executive producer of Fox Sports, Eric Shanks. Shanks, welcome.
Mr. Hacker, how are you? Who were the first 19? And I'm only 20.
Oh, well, I had Howard Katz on,
Oh, good.
our good friend from the NFL, and I had Maggie Carlisle, the GC of the Pac-12 on. I've had some various lawyers that work for us, and for our
interview skills to a point where you could go toe to toe with me. Is that it?
Yeah, I had to build my
Exactly.
interview skills up. I don't want to be compared to the boys on Sunday or anything. Get treated like that. Well, really, I really appreciate you taking the time to have a little chat with us. And we just do this little discussion, sometimes with lawyers, but sometimes with people that touch upon what we as lawyers do in the sports industry. And I thought it'd be great for them to hear about somebody who's on the top of the world in terms of the sports business, sports broadcasting, and to say the least, has gone from a world of actually cutting tape,
right,
putting it back together on giant reels, to a completely digital, computer-based technology. So as an intro, why don't you, if you don't mind, just let our audience know a little bit about not only what your job is as the CEO of Fox Sports, but your most interesting path to getting there.
Sure. First, thanks for having me. It's a lot of fun seeing you. I haven't seen you in a while, even though we've kept in touch. The path, let's see. So the quick story is I was in school at Indiana, and one way or another, I was asked to go to the Olympics in Lillehammer to work as a very low totem pole person on the production side for the Olympics. Apparently, I was gone from college, and gosh, this is probably 1992 or something like that, 93. I was gone from college too long, and when I came back to take the finals, they just said, look, you can't be gone for 6 weeks and expect to take the finals. So they didn't let me come back to school, and I called CBS and told them the situation, and they just said, look, if you move to New York and work as a researcher for $75 a day, you can, we'll hire you. So I never went back to school after that little mishap coming back from Lillehammer. And then literally right when I got to New York is when CBS lost the NFL deal. And it was like rats off a ship. And I just so happened to work for a guy named Richie Zients that got a producing job at Fox. And then I've been at Fox doing various things ever since 1994, as you know. And look, it's a pretty small place. Fox is still a family-run company by Rupert and Lachlan, and it's it is a very different media company, I think, from all of our peers. A different culture, different strategy. I think you can see just in the stock performance of us and our peers over the last couple of months. We have a very different strategy, and Street looks at us very differently. But yeah, I mean, since 1994, have been sent various places in the world. So either been doing Fox Sports, or they did send me to Italy to start Sky Italia. And then we bought DirecTV. I worked at DirecTV for 6 or 7 years. And then once we sold DirecTV, I've been back here now like 11 years. So that's it in a nutshell.
That's a great path. And having done everything, between us, I just find it great that you started in the business working for Z, and now Z works for you.
I still work for Z, you know that. I still get exactly.
So on the day-to-day, I know you have a huge portfolio of responsibility between the company's responsibilities with the highest rated program in Indy Day Park, the NFC of the National Football League, NASCAR, Major League Baseball, big time in Major League Baseball right now. By the way, the Dodgers are up 2-0 in the bottom of the first. Seager hit another bomb.
Got it right there.
The World Cup, which is coming up with some interesting issues there. And if you read the funny papers, it seems like Fox is getting a lot more interested in expanding its soccer portfolio. So as the executive producer overseeing it, can you tell us a little bit about what your role is interfacing, not just with production, but with all your executives responsible for each of these pods?
Yeah, definitely. This place has changed over the last 4 years since the Murdochs sold a big chunk of the company to Disney. So, 4 years ago, my job was overseeing all of our regional sports networks, as well as some of the international businesses, as well as the national, broadcast and cable sports here in this country. And so now that all of that, basically the international, the RSNs were sold, this business now is kind of starting from greenfield again, which I think is a very kind of Fox thing to do, which is build businesses from scratch and be very kind of aggressive and maybe a couple of steps ahead of everybody else. So I guess the team here and how we interact is since all of those kind of bigger assets were sold, the team now really thinks about building every day. And so whether it's, league relationships or starting new businesses like Fox Bet, interfacing with Tubi, which is the new AVOD service that Fox bought, and we're starting to put some sports on there. I would say that the team, first and foremost, wants to put the best product on the air every day and innovate for the fans around it. But really, a big chunk of the team's business is looking forward to building things, whether it's our wagering business, which is probably the broadest and deepest portfolio of wagering assets of any media company, definitely. Or building a brand new business like the USFL, right, which we're launching a new spring football league. So it's a pretty entrepreneurial place, but it's also, again, kind of it's a small place. The senior management here at Fox Sports is 10 people.
So same game, new attitude still apply?
Yeah, look, I keep trying to, I use it all the time. Same game, new attitude. And Bobby, like that still is the greatest mantra probably ever constructed, I think, for a sports division. We still use it here all the time. It's probably not front and center marketing wise, but it really still is the mantra of the place because it applies to everything, right? Like you said, like if we, let's say that, in the new UEFA Euros deal, right? Like it's the first time that we've had the Euros and we'll still say same game, new attitude, right? It still applies to everything that we do.
And interesting, what's happened over the past, 23 years since I first joined the company. I remember the very early first football production seminar I went to in 1999. And our friend, Mr. Hill, calls you up to talk about this amazing thing Sky was doing with soccer, how you could actually pick the view that you wanted to see. And now here we are 23 years later, and the closest thing to those options are either what ESPN has done with the Manning brothers or their megacast concept. Do you think there's a future for this sort of alternate viewing, or does it bastardize your original concept that you're showing, the typical announcer and the play-by-play guy and your analyst?
Yeah, look, on the margins, I think things like that can't hurt. Are they worth the investment? Is there a real ROI? I tend to, not think so in the long term. I think that, there's a novelty to them. and they can't hurt if if you can justify or rationalize the cost. But I think we've learned since those first days, learning from Sky in the 90s, there's the reason that a lot of these things don't work is because it asks the viewer to do more work than they want to do. Like, do I really want to cut my own camera angles? Do I really want to miss the main feed that has certain commentary? Peyton and Eli are successful because it's Peyton and Eli. Like, they're just really entertaining and really good. Like, I would watch them during the US Open golf, right? I mean, they could do anything and be super successful and popular. And it works because the viewer doesn't really have to do anything, right? They just choose, one or the other. And so I think that there clearly is a lot more interactivity happening now that, you can watch a game and have a great interactive device like your phone, or watch on your phone and play free-to-play games or fantasy, or gamble in real time. So the second screen experience is probably, to me, less about alternate video, and it's more about wagering and things like AR in the future. But it's I think what we've learned is that there's not a great return on the investment of just throwing out a bunch of camera angles for people to pick from.
Yeah, and it seems that phrase, we've been hearing it a long time, the second screen experience. It's still such a valid phrase, but it's morphed over time as to what that second screen really provides you. And obviously you guys have made a huge investment in the wagering world, we'll call it, which to me is fabulous because, needless to say, you experienced it, but in my world, I experienced the battles we had with betting and gaming, and you can't even say it. And the crazy thing where the NFL used to say, there was a card table in that promo you used. You got to pull it. What do you think was the precipitating factor to sort of getting the leagues to finally buy in? I mean, we had fantasy, and I remember calling the NFL and I'm saying, how did you allow this ad? And being told, well, it's fantasy, it's not gambling. I mean, is that the precipitating force, fantasy?
I think daily fantasy had, there was a lot of legwork done across the country, especially by DraftKings and FanDuel, to get the stigma of something that looked like gambling, which was daily fantasy, to get that operationalized. And they did a lot of lobbying work to get daily fantasy going. And then PASPA happened, right, which is the ruling that allowed sports wagering online in multiple states. And so you had the opportunity, which was PASPA, and then there's just the economic aspect of it. I mean, people think it's new money, or it's either black or gray money going into the light and being taxed. And so, as long as it's done in a responsible way, and what happened in 2016, 2017 doesn't happen again, where literally every commercial pod has, a gambling ad in it, and it looks irresponsible. It's clearly here to stay. And I actually think that the way it's rolling out state by state is probably a good thing, because it creates kind of a governor across the country on how this thing is rolling out, and you're learning a lot as each state kind of opens up. Whereas if it was national, I think you'd see a lot more, because the market would be so big so fast. I think you would probably see some even more irrational behavior than you're seeing today versus the state by state rollout.
One of the really interesting things about Fox Sports that I know about and still enjoy is the people you have doing the storytelling. The pictures tell you a lot, but it's that old adage about, adding that patina, that little nuance to telling the stories. And which is, I think, pretty clear to most people, but I'd like you to talk a little bit about that, but largely in the context of all the new technology that you have to tell the story and how that plays in, because you're looking at playoff baseball and the audio is unbelievable. I mean, you can hear the umpire call outside. You can, all the base cameras. You have so many toys. I mean, and I know your guys on the production side want to use all the toys. What's the balance that you find with the toys and the storytelling?
It's actually, I mean, it's interesting you say that because, we're at the point now when we get into the LCS is when we really do add a lot of storytelling resources, from the LCS into the World Series. And, if you take regular season baseball, there's a lot of baseball out there, right? Whether it's local or the different ESPN and Turner and Fox packages, what's available online. And a lot of it, it's hard to distinguish yourself on a week-to-week basis that your broadcast is that, head and shoulders above everything else. We're getting to a point now with the LCS where we're adding enough resources and we have the people who can use those things. When you were doing it, it's probably like, okay, if we approve this, do we actually have the people that know how to use it, right? And so we clearly have just amazingly talented individuals now with Matt Gangle directing, Cheska, and everybody that that's in the truck. But we think, and I was talking to Brad Zager about this yesterday, now we're at a point in baseball where these broadcasts that we're doing now for the LCS, you finally look at a baseball broadcast and go, oh, okay, that's different, right? I have so many different camera angles. I have so many different replay sources. I have so many different kinds of cameras and audio inputs that you can clearly look at these ALCS games and know there's something special compared to a regular season baseball game. And it's everything from, the other night in left field, being able to have a camera with a tight enough lens that you can follow the ball out of the pitcher's hands all the way to the plate, but you're doing it from left field. So you can see the dive of the ball because you're seeing it sideways, right? You just don't see that in regular season, baseball games, or, the new Megalodon cameras, how many of those we have that make the game look like a movie. It really is, at this point going forward, these broadcasts really do look special.
And I gotta say, I love the new Fox box.
Good. That's a Brad Zager thing. Like we are at a point where one of the things we realized is that more people are watching on these phones. And if you need to make your graphic big enough, your Fox box big enough that it at least doesn't punish people for watching on a phone. And if I watch, our competitors' games on the phone, I can't read the score, anymore. So we wanted to at least balance some big readable fonts and color and customization to a baseball look that I think it really does stand out, and it looks modern and fresh and is good no matter what device you're watching on.
And I think you also achieved a really important goal is by sort of three-dimensionalizing the bases, that you get a better sense of where the runners are. In the two-dimensional sort of straight frame, it was always a little confusing. This makes it much clearer.
Yeah, am I looking at third base or first base? It used to be that way. Yeah. We still call it Ed Tober here though.
It's a good look. So I know I didn't want specifics, but obviously we're a lawyers organization, and I know what the lawyers do for you guys, but talk a little bit about the counsel you need and how you work with your lawyers. And these deals, people don't realize, but these rights deals are, have now become 150-page documents.
Oh yeah.
And they're very complex. And on the one hand, in negotiating a deal, on the high level terms is one thing, but protecting the rights, that seems to be the bigger challenge today, and clearing up all the definitions, especially since the word digital is virtually meaningless, and getting that defined, determines really where you're going to make your ROI.
Yeah, I mean, it is, you guys probably talk about this a lot, but no matter what area of business we do, and every area of business, we need counsel. Everything is a moment in time. So you can only do the deal and write the language at the moment in time that you're doing the language. You try to protect yourself into the future, and the league, tries to, have their best interest at heart with their lawyers, but everything is a snapshot of a moment in time. And you take the NFL deal. The NFL deal is a 10-year deal, right? And so how can you possibly understand what's going on? And the counsel that we have really is, I view these contracts as kind of living documents, right? Like, you make them as a snapshot in time, but then hopefully you have your counsel, your advisors, your experts around with you for a long time, so that as things come up and you need to have discussions, that you have the expertise there. So for example, Kai Dhaliwal is our main NFL lawyer, and he is just a stud. But we look at him as, yes, he's a lawyer, but he's just our expert on everything. Like, please interpret this for me, right? Like, tell me what position I should take on this, and I'll be looking to that advice from Kai, 3 or 4 years from now. Like, he doesn't have to look anything up. Like, I'm sure, and that's kind of the expertise that we look for. Is we're kind of constantly always talking to the leagues and the conferences, because time doesn't stand still. We always want something new. And so lawyers have to, help us through that, because, the contract is really kind of a living document, interpreted differently at different times. And that's just one aspect, right, of what we deal with. It's all kinds of law, whether it's, employment law, litigation, trademark and copyright. It runs the gamut, as and we have a lot of that expertise in-house across various things. But our legal team literally is a part of sports. It's not separate. Our staff meetings every day, lawyers are there, right? They're part of the working team every day, very operational.
Good to hear. So I have a question for you on the college space. There's a lot of talk with the advent of name, image, and likeness rights that advertisers would be, pulling money from traditional sources. And I was just curious, have you guys seen any impact on that? Have the advertisers pulled out to throw money at NIL, or is it a nothing burger?
I'd say at this point, I don't think the scale of NIL, we can see any impact. It just so happens that we're in a historically strong advertising market on the sports television side and the sports digital side. So I probably wouldn't be able to tease out any NIL impact, just because of the historically high demand that we're having. And we have tremendous pricing power. We have a lot of leverage on a lot of the other aspects of an advertising deal. But we are very close to the NIL side. We chose not to start an NIL business. Like, we're not agents, we're not representatives, and we just didn't think that we wanted to jump into that at the moment, because we didn't know what kind of value we could add. However, I think NIL may not have an impact ever on the scale of our advertising business, but it clearly is going to have an impact on our product, because we thought the transfer portal was impactful, right? And kids could move around, players, student athletes could move around. Now they're moving around clearly just for money, right? And it's very out in the open. And it's yet to be seen kind of the long-term impact. And it's yet to be seen the NIL, benefit to student athletes as a whole or just a few.
And speaking of athletes moving around, teams move around. And you guys got hit with a pretty big team moving around in one of your deals. And I'm sure that creates sort of a call to the conference commissioner and say, hey, what's new?
Yeah.
Because that can impact, that would seem to me to impact the value proposition when, in your case, two stud teams decide they're going to march off in another direction.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's again when you immediately go to council because it was a surprise to us. I mean, we heard about it probably not long before everybody else did, and you immediately go and say, all right, what does our deal say about this? How do we protect ourselves? How does it affect our distribution deals with game counts and how many games we're going to get out of the Big 12? So, you look at what the impact is, and then you look at what your recourse is. Is it a pro rata rights reduction, right, in the deal? So we work all that through, and then, you call the conference and say, what's your plan? So that's, I guess the bottom line is, it ends up working out the way it's going to work out. But then again, kind of like NIL, you just don't know the impact on the future yet. Like where does the dust settle, right? What does the Pac-12 look like? What does the Big 12 look like? And all those deals are coming up in the next 3 years, right? The college landscape with the CFP and all of these deals up. You start to look at 2025, 2026. The college landscape could even look a lot different than it does today.
Well, look, Eric, I can't thank you enough. This has been great having you on. I have a million other questions.
We didn't even get to rugby.
We didn't even get to rugby, which is interesting. I know you guys are investing in the Professional Sevens League. You got a little play there, which is great. I tried for 18 years, but oh well. It's great to see that. And, look, you've got huge events coming up. You always have the big events. Obviously, the World Series is coming up right away, and you'll have postseason football. But, you got some serious international football, international soccer on your guys' agenda. It's going to be, Qatar's going to be a pretty interesting proposition, I would bet. And, there's so many things I'd like to talk about home run production and how that's changing the business, a million other things. So maybe in a few months I can drag you back to talk about those other things, and we can continue our conversation. But I can't thank you enough for joining us today. It's been fun, and it's been far too long. It's great to see you.
Anytime. Thank you very much for asking me. It's great seeing you, and we'll do it again.
All right.
Okay.
Everybody, thanks for joining Sports Shorts today. And thanks again to our guest, Eric Shanks. Shanks, it's been great. We'll catch up soon. Thank you, everybody. And go to sportslaw.org to join the Sports Lawyers Association.